Hello, this is international football commentator Derek Ray, and make no mistake, this is your source for all things black and gold. Football just wouldn't be football without Berwick Rangers. Stand by for this edition of the Let It BRFC podcast.
Welcome to the BRFC podcast. I'm Adam Hunter and I'm joined once again by Kevin Haynes. Hi Kev, how are you going?
I'm alright, a bit tired, but I'm alright. I had a leak in the ceiling at 3:30 this morning, so I was clambering about the attic trying to find a leak and switching water off, and it was a nightmare. Last thing I wanted to be doing at 3:30 in the morning.
The whole family up as well, were they?
Aye. Well, you can imagine I'm no light up the attic, eh? We're all off, aye.
It's been a bit of a quiet week online in terms of Berwick stuff coming out. Has anything been happening from a team perspective?
Not really. Since we last spoke, I've added all the new guys to the chat, so there's been a bit banter flying about. We've since found out that I think Kieran Somerville's going to be the new, we'll call him the rubber head of the squad. Kev was highlighted as all that he can't spell his own surname right on Twitter, so but I think we're in bother with Kieran Somerville. But the banter's been good this week. We're doing a quiz, a Zoom quiz next Wednesday, so there's been a bit of banter flying about to who's going to be good and who's not going to be good. So,
are you getting involved?
Aye, I'll get involved. I'm trying to get Dave to send me the answers, but he's not doing it.
How is your general knowledge? Is it all right?
I'm all right. I love the chase. I'm good at the chase.
Yeah.
My favourite programme. Even when I'm on holiday, when the Bairns are on holiday, I say to them, right, we can't go out till 6 o'clock till the chase is done.
And we're joined today by Paul Dixon from BBC Radio Newcastle. Hi Paul, how are you?
Hello lads, lovely to be here today. I'm really, really excited about coming on your podcast. I'm a big Newcastle fan, but I look after all the non-league football. But I'm very much, over the last 20 years, have become a Berwick Rangers fan. So I'm delighted to be here with you tonight.
Well, it's great to have you on. Thank you for coming on. You mentioned around your coverage of non-league football. What is your role at BBC Newcastle?
Well, I've been there for 20 years, and we commentate and report on all the non-league football in and around the Northeast, with obviously Gateshead being the number one. And then we've got Blythe, South Shields, Morpeth, Dunstan. And the non-league's going very, very well at the minute in and around the Northeast area. And I go on a Saturday with me BBC van, and then we get into the stand and we cover the game, and then I stay there, and then we have a non-league show for about 20 minutes from 20 to 6, and a lad called Colin White, and we talk about all the non-league that there is and what's happened on the Saturday. And I love it. I really enjoy it. And obviously the non-league is the preference, but we used to come to Berwick and cover lots and lots of games in Berwick as well, where I loved going up because the atmosphere and the hospitality was terrific. It really was. When was it that you started coming to Berwick? Well, it would be 20 years ago, and I was thrown at the deep end really in, I think it was 2002 when Berwick played Rangers at Shielfield, and Nick Barnes, who was our commentator for Sunderland, asked me to come up and co-commentate, and we went that night. It was absolutely packed. I thought the whole of Glasgow had came down, right? And it was terrific. It was a nils each game, but I mean, the players that were playing for Rangers, Ama Rousseau, Tor Andre Flo, Andre Kanchelsis, were all on, and Berwick matched them in every way to get a nils each draw. Now that night, it was the groundsman. Was it P who was the groundsman? Wasn't it?
Yeah.
I believe he's no longer with us. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a great lad. Well, 5 Live were there, and they drew nils each. And then in the morning, P was talking to the guys live from Shielfield, and he was saying, "Can you just tell Paul Dixon that I can't find his phone because I've lost my phone?" And he was on 5 Live, it sounded great, But and then we went up for the replay up at Ibrox, and I mean, Berwick played brilliant. I mean, it took Rangers a long time to break them down. I mean, it was 3-0 at the finish, but they played brilliant. That night, Alec McLeish, that was his first time in charge. Nick Barnes had to go down and interview him, and I hadn't long been with the BBC. And Nick had said to me, because we were linked up to Radio Newcastle, and we had a massive amount of Geordies listening to that game, because there was a lot of interest, from the northeast, that Berwick were playing Glasgow Rangers. And I remember Nick saying to me, "Just fill in for 15 minutes. Well, you try and fill in for a minute, never mind 15 minutes. But anyway, we got through it. But it was a great occasion, the home game and the replay. And I mean, Berwick done very, very well over them 2 games.
Is there a big connection in the northeast to Berwick Rangers, or a big interest? Obviously.
Well, there is, Kev. I mean, and because you are obviously up there, and you don't feel it. They do come up, and they like to come up, and when you were in the league, if it was a big game, they would get on the trains or get in their cars and come up, because when I up there commentating, there was lots and lots of people that I knew that were there. And when it was midweek games, they used to come and travel to there as well. I mean, I think we'll probably talk about it later, but I can remember when there was lots and lots of players came up to Berwick. I mean, not lots and lots, but I mean, there was that, I can maybe name about 8 or 9 or 10 over the years that were very, very good. So there is an interest in the northeast to Berwick. I think sometimes the problem is, Kev, that it's only an hour to Berwick, but then it's a long way up to Elgin to play, isn't it?
It's true. It's true. But I'm presuming, obviously, regarding the players, for as long as I've known, Berwick have been training predominantly in, Edinburgh or East Lothian or somewhere. So that must be a huge factor for a player who's travelling an hour to Berwick, and then they've got an hour up the road for training. So it probably becomes, unsustainable.
A bit too much. Yeah, it's a bit too much. But I know from the past, 1978, I played for Newcastle Blue Star at Wembley, and we won the FA Vase. And one of Berwick's top players was playing in our team. He left Blue Star and went to Berwick, a lad called Peter Davison, right? And Peter won the league in I think they won the league. Did they win the league in 78, 79?
Yep, they did, yeah.
Yeah, and Peter played a really big part. And we had a lad called Steve Dixon who was in that team at Wembley. He came up to Berwick, and he played exceptionally well for Berwick as well. So them 2 lads, they like broke the ice, as you would say, to come up. And they've done very, very well. But they had decided that, they could go to Berwick and play, but they could also travel to wherever it was, Stenhousemuir, Stranraer, Montrose, and it didn't affect their life. It could maybe be a bit different now.
In terms of the standards back then, Paul, what was, so the non-league, the Newcastle Blue Star that you played with, how would that compare to the Berwick side? Was there a difference in the level, or was it very similar?
Well, I mean, Peter Davidson, who played right side when I was centre forward, Peter had 1 year at Berwick, and then Tommy Doherty from QPR paid Berwick 40,000 for him to go down to QPR, where people like Jerry Francis and Stan Bowles were playing. So, Kev, that was a good standard, wasn't it? You know, I mean, Peter was a very good player, and Stevie Dixon had played for Bolton with Sam Allardyce, but he came home at 19, and then I think he was 20, 21 when he played at Berwick Rangers. So they were two of our best players in the Northeast that Berwick came in and took, really. So the standard was high. They were very good players. They were.
I think for Peter, we played Celtic in the Cup, Berwick, and it was 1-0 to Celtic at the time, and he scored with a header to make it 1-1, but it was disallowed for offside. He went on to win 2-0, but obviously, like, giant killing's potentially on at that point, isn't it?
Well, it is. He didn't score many headers, but he was terrific picking the ball up on the halfway line and just blasting forward and then putting lovely crosses. You would enjoy getting on the end of them, Kev. I'm sure you would.
Well, I would have loved that. Probably my favourite goals was getting up and attacking the headers. So that would have been all right.
Brilliant. Yes.
Did you manage to score at Wembley?
No. I scored just about in every round, but we won 2-1. You're talking about standards. Our left winger who scored there, Barry Dunn, played for Sunderland. He left Blue Star to go and play for Sunderland, and we had the lad who scored the winner, a lad called Ian Crumplin. He went to Hartlepool after that. So, I mean, the standard was, you know, really, really high there. But I mean, the standard at Berwick then, though, Kev, was high, wasn't it? They had a good team. Yeah. I mean, a very good friend of mine who I've gotten to know over the last 20 years, Eric Tate. Eric told me that, you know, that 78, 79 team was probably one of the best they've had. And I mean, you know, Eric's played over 500 games, so he must know what he's on about, talking about which was the good teams, you know.
Well, he's in a good position to judge, I suppose.
Yeah, well, that's right, because he's played a lot of games himself. But I then went to, when I finished playing, I went to Whitley Bay as assistant manager, like you are, up at Berwick. And we had a lad called Kevin Todd, who had played for Newcastle, and we sold him to Berwick. And he had 2 years at Berwick when he was 30. I've just checked on my notes here. He played 77 games and scored 26 goals. And he played very, very well. He played alongside Kevin Keegan and Chrissy Waddle at Newcastle. So that's a good standard, isn't it, Kev?
It's decent. His goal record's not as good as mine, though, but...
It's part of that side in Whitley Bay. You did have a good FA Cup run as well, Paul.
Well, we did. We had a terrific team, and we played Preston in the second round at Hillheads, and there was about 7,500 people there that day. John Motson was there, match of the day. And we were on Match of the Day on the Saturday night for 21 minutes. I only know that because I was told by John Motson, you'll be on for 21 minutes tonight. And he was, I timed it. And we had a great result. I mean, the legendary Tom Finney was the chairman of Preston. And we had a marvellous day. I mean, Kevin Todd scored that day, and a lad called Peter Robinson, he played for Burnley, and the draw was that night, and we were in the hat for the third round. Now, when you've got a team in the third round of the FA Cup, you could play the likes of Newcastle, Sunderland, Liverpool, Man United, Arsenal, Tottenham, and I went, where the hell's Rochdale? Because that's who we drew away at Rochdale, and they beat us 1-0. But terrific cup run, and to take a non-league team into the third round of the FA Cup, you've got to have a good team, haven't you?
Yeah, and Kev, for you for Scottish Cup, the third round's obviously similar for ourselves. Would it be a case where the players will get together and watch the draw? Because it used to be on a Saturday night, didn't it?
After a game we used to We used to go up in the boardroom actually.
Mhm.
It used to end up being mud everywhere in the boardroom and in the grit for the track. But we used to sit in the boardroom and watch the draws, and like you keep your fingers crossed for a biggie. You're kind of wanting one, but you're not wanting one really. You're not wanting embarrassed, but when you draw a Premier League side, it's brilliant. We done that. We got in my time there. We got Falkirk, who were in the Premier League at the time, and probably in fact, he probably is one of my most favourite players. Was playing that day, so that was good. It was a good experience.
Who's that? That'd be
Lappy, aye. So I'm brought up a Hibs fan, so I got to watch Lappy at the end of the 90s, and then to play against them the beginning of the noughties. It's good, and I got his shirt that day. I could tell you a wee story as well about the current Hibs manager. He was playing, but I had a bit of set to with him during the game with Jack Ross, and Latipi says to me at half time, we were going off at half time, and Latipi says to me, if you pick on my pal again, I'm going to batter you up and down this path. And obviously it was like David versus Goliath in the term of the two of us walking off together. But he was laughing, he was having a good laugh, and I just asked him, could I get the shirt after the game, and he did. Right after the game he was in and handed it into P for me. And
so something that the two years have got in common is you've played on the Stanks. I don't know if you knew that. So Paul, do you want to talk about your experience of playing in the Stanks?
Well, yeah, I was coming to the end of me footballing career, and a team called Forest Hall down here says we've entered a team in the Stanks up at Berwick. So we used to travel and play, like, I think it was either 16 or 32 teams, and we came up about 3 or 4 times. And then we played Shank House from Cromlington in the final. And it was amazing. I mean, the amount of people there was on the Saturday night. And I mean, you walked out like the cup final, referee, 2 linesmen, and they were all standing, like the wall, right? And there was a funny incident there because there was a supporter for Forest Hall. He fell off there and broke his 2 legs, and the game was held up. And it was amazing, really, because we were getting beat 2-0, 2 early goals they scored, and then when the game was stopped, we went on to win the game 7-3, and it definitely changed the game. But I had a marvellous night that night because I scored 5 goals, which was incredible. And after the game, I received the trophy and man of the match, and that was off Trevor Stephen. You remember the lad from Berwick?
Yep.
Lovely lad he was. And later on in years, I've been invited to go back up because obviously going to commentate on Berwick's games, a lot of them lads were involved with the Stanks. Lovely set of people, and they invited me to go one Saturday night. It was a red hot night, and I can't remember the 2 teams are playing now. It was a lot of years ago, but we had a lovely night. So, is the Stanks still going?
Yeah, it was stopped this year, obviously for the pandemic, but it still goes on. Yeah.
But there was teams from all over the borders that came and played. But it was a very, very well organised competition as well, and obviously they made a lot of money for charity as well, didn't they?
Yeah.
But I enjoyed coming up, and I enjoyed the final. We had, but what team we had was a Northern League team. They were all guests, and they came up. So I mean, we were favourites to win it, and it did. But sometimes the favourites get turned over, as I know, because I like to bet on the horses, and they do get beat,
But a bit like Kev, Paul, you were a ringer. As part of the team. It wasn't one that you'd been involved with. Can you remember much of the Stanks, Kev?
No, I didn't realise it was such a big deal. I thought it was just a game of football. And it was a teammate of mine at the time who lived in or from Berwick, Gary Wales. and he had asked me at training one night, just, do you fancy coming down? It's all my pals and they're Berwick fans and whatever, and you come down and play a game. And I said, aye, I'll come down and I'll play. But I didn't realise it was such a big tournament, and then they progressed to the next round, and so on and so forth. I just thought I was turning up for a game of football.
That night we played the final, I bet there was like 1,500 people there. I mean, Berwick would be like delighted. But there was an awful lot of holidaymakers there as well, in the height of the summer it was there when we played. And they all came out to watch that game on the Saturday night. I think it kicked off about 6:30, which give you a bit of time later on to go for a drink if you were successful, and we were.
How would you like to be in with a chance of winning £1,000 every month? If that sounds appealing to you, because it sure does to me, you need to join Berwick Rangers Supporters Club's monthly draw. For just £5 per month, you'll go into a draw with hundreds of other Dream Team supporters to win the monthly jackpot. In addition to the £1,000 prize, the Supporters Club will be donating £250 each month to a chosen local charity, with the rest of the profits from the draw going to the football club. For details on how to sign up, visit berwickrangers.com or message the supporters organisation on Facebook, Berwick Rangers Supporters Club, or on Twitter at BRFC Sup Club. Berwick Rangers Supporters Club, supporting your club and your community.
What's been your best experiences from coming up to Berwick, Paul?
Well, what I like about coming to Berwick is the hospitality of the people is wonderful. And when we come up, sometimes team-handed, there might be 4 of us if we're bringing the big BBC van to do commentary and co-commentary and interviews and that after the game. They look after us in a real high manner. The food and the drink and anything we want, they look after us. I mean, Dennis is Dennis still with the club?
He is, yeah.
Yeah, well, he's looked after us really, really well. And it's a terrific atmosphere when you go there. I mean, it averaged about 450, 500 fans, but the way they get behind that team and they love that team. And there used to be good atmosphere because if they were playing a team that were doing well, I mean, remember the game when they played Cove was, when the day they got relegated. But, I mean, that was fantastic. At Cove brought all them people down. Mate, if the shoe was on the other foot, if Berwick had to go to Cove to win, I think there would have been a lot of Berwick Rangers fans to go if you're going to get promoted, But no, I just love coming to Berwick. Top people and looked after us, and I was really, really disappointed when they got relegated to the Lowland League. It took a bit of out of us at the BBC that Berwick, because I mean, anytime Berwick got a good result, it was advertised and spoke about on all the shows that we've got within the BBC. But I'm sure, and Kev's trying hard there, that it might come back and you might end up in the Scottish League again. It's going to be hard work, but any support from the BBC. I mean, Simon Pride, who does Total Sport, I mean, Simon is a massive Berwick fan. He lived is it Lewick?
Yeah.
It's just down the road, isn't it? So there's within the BBC, there's a lot of love for Berwick Rangers. There really is.
And obviously John Anderson is part of it as well. And
well, that's right. Great lad, Ando. And like I say, they're all wanting Berwick to do very well. And Kev asked me about the North East. What do they think of Berwick? They love Berwick. They feel as though that they're not in Scotland. Well, they're not. They're in England, but they're playing in Scotland, and it's like our team because it's like Northumberland.
Yeah, so obviously there's a uniqueness up here of the English club playing in the Scottish leagues, and I'm just wondering if that transferred. Obviously it's your English side down there, and if it generated the same interest with the uniqueness.
I think people looking for a score up in Scotland, even now that you're in the Lowland League, the people still look in the North East, still look to see how Berwick have done. And I can tell you there was a lot of sadness when they went out the league, and for all that history. But it's up to you lads to roll your sleeves up, have a go, and see if you can bring them back. And I'm sure not be for the one to try. No pressure at all, eh?
No, it's all right. We stride on pressure. It's good.
Good lad. That's what it's about. Come on, Berwick.
So we talked loosely earlier around North East players come to Berwick to play for the team. Most recently, I can remember is Chris MacDonald, Greg Rutherford, and Mark Lancaster, and Sam Perez, the OC's brother. Who are the other sort of players that you can remember, Paul, over the years?
Well, like I say, there's Peter Davison and Steve Dixon, Kevin Todd, a lad called Scott Sloan, who came from Ponteland, was very good. There's a lad called Alan Walker, who played for Blythe Spartans when Blythe played Wrexham at St James's Park. He was playing left back then. And a lad called Gary Morgan, who was a fantastic player who played for Concert, and I think it was Eric who brought him up, Eric Tate. And all them players that I've mentioned here were top notch. The players that you mentioned there were good players, but not in the same class as the ones that came before. And if you're asking me now, would players come and play for Berwick? I think they would if certain things were right. It's different now because there's a lot of young lads playing down here who've been to Newcastle, Sunderland, Middlesbrough, Hartlepool, Carlisle, who don't have what's called a job and then they go and play football. They just want to play football. So travelling to, the Lowland League teams, I don't think that would be a problem for them now. And I mean, if you could get like 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 to travel together, I think it would enhance Berwick's team. I really do. But you would need quality to come up. Because, I mean, if they're going to travel that far, they've got to be permanent in your team and they've got to nearly be playing every week. But that would be good quality players. There's a lot of non-league players in and around the Newcastle area. But as I've said, it's only an hour to Berwick and then you've got to travel, haven't you? And it's some of them, but they're not. It's the Lowland Leagues, though. I mean, you don't need to go. I mean, obviously there's the Highland League, so you don't go that far, do you? Really?
No, we didn't go. Kind of Fife is probably as far as we go. Stirling, but obviously with that lengthy or that distance that you'd expect somebody to play. We spoke about it with Eric Tate, and like what you're saying, people used to have a desire to be a football player, and it didn't matter how far they had to travel or where they had to go. But it's not the situation now.
No.
That there'll be clubs in the northeast that are probably at a lesser level than where Berwick are, but will pay similar wages, and players won't travel to play at a better level. They'll stay comfortable on their doorstep and picking up the same money. There's not that desire to be a football player.
Well, down here, Kev, the top teams now, obviously Gateshead, South Shields and Morpeth are bringing players from the Lancashire, Yorkshire, Hull area to come up and play, because the leagues that they're in, they play teams from that area, and they have to pay a few quid. And some of them, I mean, Spennymoor, I've got about 3 players that live in Spennymoor, train all week, and then obviously play and go home on a Saturday. But some of them are taking it extremely serious, that they want to be up the pyramid system. But I can understand what you're saying. I mean, is Berwick's players mainly from the Edinburgh area?
Yeah, there's everybody for the Edinburgh area. There's maybe a couple from, we've got one from Fife at the minute, and we had a couple that travelled up for Berwick for training, but predominantly it's Edinburgh based. So the teams that you're talking about in there, the non-league, what kind of money would or average would a player get there, a non-league player?
Well, there's different levels. There's the second division of the Northern League and the first division of the Northern League, and then there's the pyramid system, and then there's the National League North, and then there's the National League. Some of the budgets for the year is incredible. I mean, like Morpeth Town, probably pay about £4,000 a week out.
Right.
Which is a lot of money, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Gateshead have got lads on, they'll be on £500, £600, £700. Spennymoor will have the same. Some of them might even be on £1,000 a week. So you're going to get your boots back out, Kev.
They're looking for players, do you know?
It's probably reflective of the league setup as well, though, isn't it? There's not a lot of money. We're talking about this with Danny Swanson. There's not a lot of money in the Scottish game. Whereas as you go into England, the equivalent sort of level, it's a lot less money that a player will be on.
Well, I think, as I've covered the non-league all my life, I think some of the players are getting money that they shouldn't get, but there's others deserve their money, right? But it's not easy because you're competing against money all the time, and good players that will follow the money. And that's happening here in the northeast, where like we've got Gateshead, we've got Morpeth, and we've got South Shields, Spennymoor. I mean, Blythe Spartans were bottom of the league last year, and if we didn't have the lockdown, Blythe would have been relegated to the league and find it difficult without paying more money to come back up the leagues. But as Kev will tell you, I knew when I was managing Whitley Beer, to get the best players, you've got to give them good money. You can't expect to bring young'uns in and do the job for you. You need experienced players who can get you a win. You really do. Well, that's my view anyway.
No, it is. Unfortunately, like you're saying, experience costs money. And there's specialist positions in a team that also cost money. And if you want to be successful, sometimes you've just got to pay to get these positions filled. If you're wanting experience, and sometimes you've got to just do it. If you're in a position to do it, if you're not in a position to do it, then that's how it is. You just got to.
Well, you've just got to get on with it, then, haven't you? You have really, and try and make your young players or your players a wee little bit better. But you're right, Kev. I mean, there's nothing better than having a top-notch goalie, a top-notch centre-half, and a top-notch centre-forward through the spine, and then you can build a little bit from that, can't you? Yeah,
I totally agree. But just like the position we found ourselves in last year, we filled our whole squad with kids. We're the youngest squad in the Lowland League.
Is that right?
And I keep harping on about it, that last season we made a lot of mistakes, but you need to make mistakes to get better, and you need to make mistakes to gain the experience. And I just feel that the players have hopefully made their mistakes, and they're going to be better for it this year coming, because we're still a young side.
Yes.
And if we can't afford to get the experience, then we need to go and make them experience. The more games you play, the more experience you become, obviously. So that's where we are, and that's what we're here to do. So
I think what would help is if you could afford to pay 3 or 4 over the top, and they were the backbone of your team, and then the young players looked up to them and realised how good of players they are, and they would give you a fighting chance to progress up the league or challenge for promotion. I mean, you know, I'm sure you've got teams in the league that have got plenty of money, and when you look at their squad, you'll think, "Oh, what a team these are." I mean, you probably played them last year, and you're thinking, "Well, I would like to have the money that they've got to have the team that they've got," because you always have to have that, because you want to strive for success, don't you?
Yeah, I think that's possibly what's put we're in the position that we're in, though, is to pay over the odds for one or two players, rely on hopefully a big cup draw or a decent cup run or cup money from historical seasons, and not have a sustainable sort of business model. Whereas,
Do you think that's what you should have had? Yes.
yeah, I think obviously as a fan, we always want to see great players play for the team. We want to see the best football. We want to see the best footballers for the level. But realistically, we still want a club to be there in a year, 2 years' time.
Correct, because it's a great club. But I mean, how can you? I mean, is 100% of your team from in and around the Edinburgh area?
Yeah, and it's probably something that we might already talked about before, Kev, is the quality of the Lowland League. I've seen some cracking footballers around in the Lowland League who shouldn't be playing in the Lowland League, and it's because the pay is better because they've got a part-time job that's paying a decent rate alongside a decent wage from a football club, and the other thing is that it's closer at home, so it's more local. I know there's the competitive aspect about battling around the teams from the Central Belt for players. But yeah, I think the quality in our league has been really good this year.
Aye, and you kind of hit the nail on the head there. There's a lot of professionals or ex-professionals playing in the Lowland League because they're fed up doing Annan and Elgin, and they've done it for years, and now they've got somewhere that's close to home. The majority of the games are close to home, and it suits them. But if you see this week and you see some of the players that have moved from our league to the senior game, and it just emphasises how good, you know, our league is again.
And has Berwick got the finances to go and get a few of them players to come and play for Berwick?
Only if you get the BBC to pay it.
I'll send the money up by carrier pigeon. Is that all right? Yes. I know what you're saying, but it's not easy, Kev, because you know what makes a good team, and you know good players that you'd like to bring to Berwick, and you know what it takes to put a good team together. I mean, I'll go back to my team at Whitley Bay. The directors that we had there, when we needed to pay a couple of grand, this was in 1989, for a player, they would give us the money and we would buy him, and then would give him a good signing on fee, and then he's at the club. But once he's in your dressing room, you've got a chance of getting the money back. Now, the day we played Preston, when we won 2-0, and it was on Match of the Day, in 1989, we made 33,000 profit that day. Now, that was a lot of money then, Kev.
Yeah.
And it tells me that if you speculate to accumulate, you've got a chance. If you don't get the opportunity for you to sit down with your manager and say to him, lad, we would really like you to come to Berwick Rangers, and he's not top notch, sometimes it can break your heart, can't it? Yeah,
but I think in terms of speculating to accumulate, I think that's fine if you have the funds sitting there. I think where Berwick's been mismanaged probably over the last 5-6 years is, as Adam said earlier, everyone was taking on a gamble. There was money spent hoping that we'd get a Celtic in the third round.
Yeah.
There was money spent hoping that we can get a big friendly in pre-season. There was money spent hoping, and the hopes never materialised, which has left the club in the shit. So I get what you're saying, but what you've got to take into consideration, and I don't know how people understand it in the North East, but because of this dark cloud that's hung over Berwick over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
In Edinburgh, well, you know, that's where I live, but there's a dark cloud, and players don't want to be associated with it because of the goings on in the last, you know, 4 or 5 years that we're speaking about. So we're slowly trying to change that, and the guys that are doing the media stuff are changing it, and it's very, very positive, and the board are being positive and trying everything they can. And
so it's going to take time, isn't it, really?
Of course it is. Of course it is.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, have you learned a lot from the Lowland League where you've been involved with this year?
I think we've shown on our day this season that we can compete with everybody.
Good.
We've had lapse of concentration where mistakes have cost us, and that goes back to my comments about the young players learning and making the mistakes and being better for it. So I would say we can compete with anybody. Probably our best games last season was against the top 4 or 5 sides. The reason I believe it is because in these games there's been no pressure on us.
No,
because we're the underdogs in these games, but in the standing of Scottish football, we're the biggest club in that league.
Yes.
And when we're playing, no disrespect to Gallifrey or Edinburgh University or Stirling University, when they come to Berwick, it's a cup final for them, and the games are all limited 20%.
Yes.
And I think that's where we've struggled, is matching the enthusiasm of the other clubs that are coming to turn us over and go away cheering and hollering that they've beat Berwick Rangers. That's
right. You're right, because them teams are coming to a fantastic ground, and when they walk through the doors and go in the dressing rooms, and then, you know, the pitch, because the pitch is magnificent. Every time I've been up, the pitch has been fantastic, you know. But yeah, if you've got that line of form with them top teams, and if you add 2 or 3 to your squad, then, which you probably have done this year, you've got to educate them to, like, say, when these teams come here, we've got to be good enough to beat them, because they're coming to nearly like Hampden Park, isn't it? Really, what they're thinking it is, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think we'll see a mentality shift next year, Kev, with teams coming here now that it's sort of a second season?
Possibly, and certainly from the teams that have probably beat us this year. You know, if there's been somebody that's had a good result, you know, it's probably not such a big deal to them again. So maybe that factor's worn off, or will have worn off when we get back. So hopefully.
I think what he mentioned was a great point there about Edinburgh's feeling about Berwick Rangers. So you've got to try and really get rid of that and you know, tie it up to say we've got a new club, it's a new venture, it's a new challenge, and we want to get back into the Scottish Football League, you know.
As I mentioned before with Chris MacDonald and Greg Rutherford, I know they were training once a week in Edinburgh, and then they would train once a week with a local team. Would that something that you think you would be open to, or is it a case where you prefer to have them in for both sessions for sort of squad?
No, I think Jan and I have discussed it, and that could work. You know, there's circumstances where it has to work. Mm-hmm. If there's players that are good enough and they're going to make our team better, then we'll do what we can to make that work. Likewise, when we've got players on loan, you know, we've had players on loan for Livingston this season, and we could only get them once a week because they had to train with their club once a week. Logistically, you know, that we're open to that. Definitely open to that. But there has to be a commitment from both sides.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A player has to be willing to be committed to come to Edinburgh. Likewise, that we'll be committed to allowing them to train at home once a week or whatever it might be. But no, it's certainly something we have discussed and something that we would, you know, do.
How does scouting work at Berwick?
Dave Douglas tells us who's good. Dave Douglas has got an encyclopedia of every single player in Scotland, and he knows when their contract runs out, and he knows their phone number, and he knows their mum's name and the mum's cat. So, but Jano knows everybody in Scottish football.
Yeah.
Jano's well connected, and as am I and Darren. Between the three of us, we know a lot of people, and you get heads up, this player's doing well or this player's doing good, and then we obviously take the opportunity to go and watch games ourselves. Jano's dad watches a few games for us. If there's a player that we like, or we've maybe come against them as an opposition player, then Jano's dad will go and watch them for 3 or 4 weeks after that. So it's really getting the names and sending people to go and watch them if you can't do it yourself.
Yeah. And Paul, you did that for Johnny Harvey last season in the North East. What was that experience like?
Well, I didn't really. I spoke to him about, and I says, just what Kev said there, and the guy's talking about who knows all the players. Well, they need to come down and say, how much you're getting. We can afford that, or we can give you a bit more. We can give you a signing on fee, and I'd like you to come and play for Berwick. It can't just be done off the cuff. You've got to have a proper scouting. You've got to go to look and see how good the player is. Can he do it for you? Again, back to money. How much do you want? And can we afford him? I wish Berwick all the best. And like I say, there was a lot of people down here broken-hearted that they went out of the league. I remember bringing a Whitney Bay team up to play them for a friendly, and we drew 1 each. And Berwick had a good team then, and great. They looked after us exceptionally well. It's a terrific club, and everybody knows they're a terrific club who's been involved with them. They possibly just need some better players to get us projected up that league.
And that brings us to an end of this week's episode. Thank you to Paul and Kev for joining us, and thanks to everyone for listening. We'll be back next week. If you enjoyed the episode today, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon.